Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Yancey Fouché. If I don't know you, I'm the Director of Sustainability up at Davidson College. And we have two audiences with us today to meet the sustainability scholars from Davidson of the summer of 2017. And so I have a few special notes for each of our audiences today. For those in the room, thank you for being here at the Duke Endowment Conference Facility in Dilworth in Charlotte. And we have restrooms around the corner. If you walk out to the right, feel free to use those. Emergency exits are just outside the door. If we happen to have an in-room emergency, you would call out in the hallway and the response team would help us out with that. And of course, don't forget about 911, always useful. And feel free to go refresh your drinks, go get some more food if you like to do that during this presentation. For those of you on Facebook, thanks for being with us today as well. Please share the live stream with your networks so that we can have as many people meet these scholars as possible. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation, so feel free to type a question that you may have at any point during the presentations into the comment box of the live stream, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. And finally, after the live stream, our video will be available online on the Davidson College Facebook page, and captions will be added shortly after today. So at the risk of sounding too much like a politician, I would like to really thank some special friends of the Office of Sustainability at Davidson who are here with us today. We have several professors, several faculty members from the Environmental Studies Department. If you'll give a little wave so everyone can see who you are. Dave Backus, we have Fuji Lozada, Graham Bullock, and Jennifer Garcia Peacock. Thank you for being here. We have Tom Oakle in the room. Tom is with Catawba Lands Conservancy and also serves on Davidson's Board of Trustees. We have Dr. Byron McCrae. Yeah, thanks for being here. Dr. McCrae just began as Davidson's Vice President for Student Life, so appreciate you coming to meet these students today. We have representing the Office of Finance and Administration at Davidson, we have Tammy Benshoof. Thanks, Tammy. Tiffany Waddell Tate out of Career Development is still on her way, I think, but Tiffany has been really an important part of helping the students connect their experiences this summer with their longer-term professional development and outcomes. So big thanks to her and that office. Patricia Massey-Hoke and Katie Davidson are both here out of Davidson's College Relations Office. They have been huge personal support to me in getting the logistics for today all set up. Nathan Hunerwaddle is the guy with the headphones on, the guy behind the camera, and he's totally made the social media element of today's event possible, so thanks, Nathan. And finally, two folks representing foundations that have supported this experience financially, so a huge thank you to Christy Kessler-Walters with the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, thanks. And Jillian Small is here with the Duke Endowment. Jillian. Thank you. We will have a networking portion at the very end of the event. So for those of you in the room, if you have someone you want to follow up with, please do that. Of course, the site supervisors are who really make this program possible. And we are very fortunate to have folks from leading sustainability organizations across Charlotte. I inherited many of these partners and added a few new ones. And it was a huge help to me and relief to go around last fall meeting folks who had had very positive experiences with their Davidson students and were eager to continue those relationships. So anyone who's ever supervised knows the time and care that goes into that process. So I really want to give a huge thank you to the site supervisors. If y'all would please stand as a group and be recognized. All right, and today, of course, is really about the students you see peppered throughout this room, who I think are experiencing a mix of like exuberance and fear at this very moment, but who have truly sought shown tremendous leadership to seek out this program amongst the many offerings that Davidson provides for its students, to go through the application process, which was fairly rigorous, and included grueling interviews with the site supervisors who they've landed with who are here today. I think both myself and the site supervisors have set very high expectations of these students, truly, and they have met and exceeded those in almost every case. And so, true to the Davidson College kind of legacy, they've certainly risen to that level. They have met deadlines, and I have, there's no academic credit tied to this experience. They pretty much knew they were going to get paid regardless. So even so, they've met their deadlines. They've enthusiastically embraced experiences, some professional experiences, some kind of challenging physical and mental experiences we've had throughout the summer, tried new things, and displayed incredible initiative and professionalism throughout the summer. So a huge shout out to the students. They've challenged one another and me in synthesizing the varied experiences that we've had, and I thank them for that. They've been present, and that was some feedback I gave to them that, often with college students, we get the stereotype that students will be hiding behind their phone, their Facebook account, as some of you might be doing at home today. But these students were very present, sought to make the most of everything that I put in front of them. And, true, again, to the spirit of the Davidson student, they began the summer every bit as serious as one who knows that kind of student would expect. They're high-achieving students, and they took good notes during orientation. So when we sat down with career development and heard about how to craft a respectful and appropriate email in the workplace, the instructions were to write a greeting at the top that says, good afternoon, so-and-so, good morning. And you better believe that every email I've received since that session begins, good morning, Ms. Fouché. I hope your day is going well. So I've appreciated that. I administered some pre-program assessments to the students to kind of gauge where they were in their understanding of various sustainability concepts relative to our learning outcomes for the program. And I was very impressed at the level of kind of knowledge, content knowledge, and understanding of theory and things that they had around these issues, but it seemed to be a very academic understanding. They have some great environmental studies professors and other professors at Davidson who have, shared with them the latest literature and theories and ideas that great scholars have. But I think there really was room for these students to increase their understanding of how sustainability plays out in the real world, quote unquote, and specifically in the Charlotte community. Another kind of goal I had for them, my own hidden agenda for them this summer, was to get them to relax a little bit and have fun. And I think they've done that. We had some very serious meals at the beginning, and it's like, it's lunch. We can talk and laugh, guys. It's okay. But seriously, I think in this profession, it's very important, those of you who do this work in the room understand that for your own well-being and your own sustainability, you have to know how to have a sense of humor and obviously work well and enjoy relationships with others, and that as change agents in the world, as we hope they will be, that we want students to be able to connect with others in that way as well and motivate them around certain causes. So when I think about really my vision, this is my first time to have the opportunity to administer this program. And when I was thinking about my vision of what I wanted for the students this summer and beyond, really, I was really struck a few weeks ago by a sermon, actually, at Davidson United Methodist Church, where I've been attending. Sally Langford, the lead minister there, was talking about God's will and why do bad things happen to people, good people. And when she was delivering that sermon, her point was that, people are given freedom to make certain decisions in the world. And sometimes people don't always make the best decisions. So this was her point. She listed off a litany of examples, being war, crime, things you would expect. In her relatively short list was climate change. And my emotion being in the pew was, almost immediately to give a whoop, which was not appropriate in the setting of this more formal church environment. And then I really started tearing up, because to me that moment represented what I'm hoping for out of these scholars, that whether they have sustainability in their job titles, or whether they are ministers or lawyers or bankers or civil servants, whatever profession and also in their civil life that they find themselves in 5, 10, 50 years down the road, that they have found a bit of a calling to think about sustainability in the work that they do and how they can move the needle on that topic. Through the summer, we've used public transportation. Yes, we've ridden cats. Some of the students have gotten very good at it, so if you need tips, ask them. We've had fun. We have read and discussed climate change and current events, both locally and nationally. We've spent a fair bit of time outside, which I think is important to connect everyone to why we're doing what we're doing. And we have networked with pretty varied sustainability professionals. And so thank you to you all who have helped these students increase their professional networks. A couple of my favorite Friday field trips that we had, so the students were with their site supervisors Monday through Thursday. They lived together in a house in Davidson throughout the summer, and then each Friday we would work together to have some of these shared experiences and field trips. So a couple of my favorites were a bio blitz we conducted. So early in the summer, we visited the Camp North End development. If y'all are familiar with that, it's a new 75-acre redevelopment of an industrial site in North Charlotte. And the developers were curious to have a baseline survey of of the biodiversity that existed on their site so that they can see how that may change over time. So our students were out there with apps to identify leaves, and we were crawling under things to look at bugs. It was really a pretty urban environment. So we had a lot of fun finding, grasses and weeds and various things, and came out with quite a few species actually on that list. Another one that was pretty interesting is we toured the Daimler plant up in Cleveland, and I think because none of our students are housed in an industrial site, it was really interesting to see how the manufacturing sector can demonstrate sustainability and enact that in their reduction of waste and even their employee attitudes, their sourcing of energy and other things. So that was a good experience, I think, for all of us. Of course, through it all, we ate well. We know that's important, right? Food is life. And so we tried very much to support restaurants that support local farmers and have a social mission as well. So again, that's kind of the wrap up of the program. Happy to everyone for joining us today to hear from these students. And we have Christine Diaz, kicking us off. Thank you.
Okay, hello all. I'm Christine Diaz. Thank you all for coming. I'm a rising junior in environmental and anthropology double major at Davidson. I was partnered with Sustain Charlotte this summer on their Walk to Transit program. Okay, so as you can read, Walk to Transit is Sustain Charlotte's initiative that really gives a voice to riders and transit advocates to better improve all of their commutes and walkability and accessibility throughout Charlotte. This is done through three major ways. Walkability audits done by volunteers, collecting qualitative and quantitative data in problem areas with high pedestrian fatalities and accidents. It's really important. Surveys, which I distributed to different bus riders all throughout Charlotte. So it's been about 100 surveys that I distributed. And then videos, specifically highlighting personal stories of bus riders who really have difficulties on their commute. Two of them are here right now. Okay, so some of the survey results that I got, the three most interesting were, if there were no bus service, how would you have traveled? To which an alarming 45% said they had no other alternative. So this bus service is really important to a lot of people. How do you get to your first bus stop? 77% said that they walked. But when asked about their bus experience, walk to bus was rated lowest on stop conditions protection at stop at 4.5 on a 10-point scale. So they're not getting the needs that they deserve. So there are a lot of benefits to public transit, but I just want to highlight three. This image, as you can see, compares 100 people if they were on a bus, if they rode bicycles, and if they were in single rider cars, which we do see a lot of here in Charlotte. So it does impact a lot of the city infrastructure. American cities would take about 37% more space if public transit were not utilized. The most obvious to people in the room here is the reduced carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. So currently, the transportation sector produces about 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions. So it's an alarming amount, and it can be greatly reduced if we use public transit to the fullest potential. and also the social impacts of public transit. So in a large study of upward mobility, commute time emerged as the single strongest factor if a family were able to move upward on the socioeconomic ladder. So it's really important on a matter of different ways, including environmental and social, and I was really happy that I could work with Sustain Charlotte on such an important initiative. I hope we can all incorporate public transit on our everyday commute to really help in a lot of different ways this system. Thank you all.
Hello all, I'm Shelby Klein, a rising sophomore environmental studies major on the humanities track. And my partner organization was Friendship Gardens, which, as it sounds, is the garden portion to Friendship Trays, Charlotte's local Meals on Wheels organization, which provides about 700 meals, I think, every day, or 5 days of the week to low-income and disabled and elderly individuals. So I think the mission of Friendship Gardens really speaks to all of us on a sustainable level, because beyond just growing healthy food and creating a community, it's also understanding that we have to do it in a sustainable manner, a manner in which doesn't use too much water, and people can get it on a local level rather than importing food from across the country to eat when we have healthy, good soil around here. Me and the other interns really focused on this program called ArcGIS, which basically is a mapping software similar to Google Maps and other organizations. And we were looking at the food desert specifically in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And there's about 64 out of the 300 or so total census blocks in the city, which is quite a bit. So those are areas where food scarcity is a major issue. And if you look right here, we were studying this 4-mile radius or so around a Montessori school called J.T. Williams, and also in combination with Friendship Gardens at the urban farm at Garinger High School, and then the trays, where we produce the food to go out. So essentially, we were looking at the food deserts and seeing what kind of opportunities are presented in local areas that can help eradicate those, essentially forming a better narrative and kind of community involvement, whether it be recreation centers, homeless centers, schools, any sort of opportunity that can really help improve the area. So in order to do this, we kind of split it into like short-term tasks and like what is our long-term goal, because obviously we only had a couple months here as sustainability scholars and the other interns for different organizations. So we were using ArcGIS. We also updated the network list for gardens so that we had an updated, we knew what was going on at Friendship Gardens. And then just sort of the basic stuff, weeding and making sure that the drip irrigation was working and that the fish were being fed from the aquaponics, and these kind of little everyday tasks that we tend to take for granted when we go to the grocery store. And that kind of comes to my final point, in which if we create a community of people who are growing their own food and processing it and really putting time and effort into doing so, the benefits are really, really long-term on a sustainable level, because not only do you have that commitment, like you spent the time from seed to consumption of growing it, but you know how much water it took. You know that bees have come and pollinated the area. And so that kind of intersectionality between social justice and environmental sustainability is really critical on the long term. So thank you all.
Hello everyone, my name is Rosario Polanco. I am a rising senior and environmental studies major. And over the past 8 weeks, I've had the privilege of working with Carolina's healthcare system under their Environmental Sustainability Solutions Department. So Carolina's healthcare system is home to 900 facilities, over 60,000 employees, and has over 12 million patient encounters a year. And if you can believe it or not, the entire Environmental Sustainability Solutions team is present in this room right now. So the role essentially of our team is to help teammates engage with sustainability across the system. So for example, if they want to recycle, we would provide the tools for them to do that at their facility, at their hospital, at their medical office, whatever it is. So during my time at CHS, I've had the opportunity to work on several projects. So the first of those being, I was able to write about 4 articles for our bi-monthly newsletter that goes out to over 500 teammates across the system. I was also able to plan my own event called a randomized coffee trial, where I essentially partnered teammates that signed up across the departments to talk about a sustainability topic. So I provided them with this coal ash article, and they met for 30 minutes, them and their partner, and they networked and they talked about the sustainability materials that I provided them. I was also able to represent the department at an information fair for new resident doctors at the Carolinas Medical Center. I was able to engage with over 70 teammates and just talk to them about what we do, why what we do is so important. In terms of my final project, I was able to write a report on green building, essentially where is CHS now and what can they potentially do in the future to improve their green building. In terms of final learning outcomes, I think something that's extremely important in the world of healthcare is that not only does healthcare really impact our Earth, but they will also be the first responders to those changes in climate change. So a study in 2013 found that the healthcare sector in the United States was responsible for 9.8% of total greenhouse gas emissions around the country. If that number is not big enough for you, that's 655 million metric tons of CO2 just coming from the healthcare sector. So that's extremely important when we're talking about our buildings and when we're talking about the kind of impact that the healthcare sector has. But also in terms of a changing Earth, the healthcare sector will be responding first to people that are being affected by natural disasters, by increases in temperature. So it's extremely important to look at the healthcare sector as a leader in terms of sustainability and change. Thank you.
So hi everyone, my name is Coraline Chu. I'm a rising junior from Davidson College, environmental study major. So this summer I've really privileged to work with Clean Air Carolina, which is a air advocacy in Charlotte. So although a lot of people think that the air quality in Charlotte is safely under the National Ambient Air Quality Standard, there are actually only 23 PM stationary air monitors across the whole NC, and only 3 of them in Mecklenburg County. So with that said, the PM level we read online every single day, it's not actually reflecting the air we are breathing in every single day. So Clean Air Carolina is dedicated to address the awareness on NC air qualities to exceed the scientific recommendation. So we engaged in both community level and policy-based work to advocate clean air. I'm really happy to get involved actually in 2 different projects to understand how community-based and policy-based work in sustainability. The first project I was in is called Citizen Science Airkeeper Program, which teach the residents in NC to use handheld air device to monitor the air in their neighborhood. I specifically work with data management and analysis, which including create a asset inventories to record all the data from our air monitors. So this program has actually been able to build a community-based air quality map throughout NC that is available to everyone. The second project I was working on is called Air Quality Health Report, which compiles both air quality data and health data for 9 counties in NC. So this project, I specifically worked with EJ Screen, which is an online GIS tool developed by EPA, to combine the demographic and environmental factors together to point out where is the vulnerable population for ambient air pollutions. So this program is really helpful for the policymakers to get to know the health impact of different air pollutants along the counties. So for my experience in Clean Air Carolina, it definitely helps me to gain a set of valuable skills, including data management and analysis. It also helps me to understand that by being able to touch on both community-based and policy-based work, NGO like Clean Air Carolina really bridges the communication between residents and the government. But last but not least, it also helps you to understand the collective effort between private sector, public sector, and NGO to solve any environmental issues. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Tina Yuan, a rising senior majoring in physics at Davidson College. This summer, I had the pleasure of working with the Energy and Sustainability Services team at JLL. At JLL, we help our client, Bank of America, manage its office and retail sites. And our specific team mission is to help Bank of America achieve its energy and sustainability goals by 2020. Some of the goals include reduce energy use by 40%, reduce water use by 45%, and reduce waste to landfill by 35%. This summer, I've focused primarily on the green building goal, which is to maintain LEED certification in 20% of the company's owned and leased space. So LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, which is a standard established by the U.S. Green Building Council to encourage building and renovation of sites that would reduce water use or promote more energy efficient designs. So throughout my project, I helped collect and verify documents that are needed to achieve LEED certification statuses in the different buildings the bank owns and leases. And in order to do that, I have to contact different architects and general contractors to ask for the site plans, the different architectural and plumbing, mechanical, electrical drawings, and also ask for the different material cut sheets that they use to verify that they are using recycled building materials and that they are using low emitting materials so that we reduce our harm to the environment during the construction process. So throughout my summer, I learned a lot about the barriers and advantages for different parties to engage in sustainable related activities. So the barriers for individuals is the difficult to measure impact because it is really hard to see how much we're contributing to a global overall sustainability goal when you just turn off your lights every day. It's really hard to see how much energy you're saving. However, it is really easy to execute a sustainable plan at home. You don't have to talk to a higher up to put a recycle bin in your garden. And you don't have to talk to the higher ups to be like, oh yay, I want to change to LED lights. You can just decide that on your own. As for profit, you always have to get permission from the higher ups to execute these plans, which is harder because it takes a long time for the cost savings to actually be seen. However, the advantages for a for-profit corporate to engage in sustainability activities is their high profile, which hopefully will influence different companies and different sectors and individuals to pursue a more sustainable lifestyle. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Millar, and I'm a rising junior and an economics and Hispanic studies double major. So this summer, I had the pleasure of working with Yancy Fouché in Davidson's Sustainability Office, and I had two main projects. The first one was STARS, which stands for Sustainability Tracking Assessment and Rating System. which is an evaluation that higher ed institutions use to measure how sustainable they are. And my other project was an employee engagement workshop. So I was creating a PowerPoint to engage Davidson faculty and staff to teach them a little bit more about sustainability. So one of the components that's part of STARS is an academic component, so looking at different areas of academics at Davidson. And specifically, we look at the courses and look at sustainability courses and courses that include sustainability. So I created a course inventory and looked at all of the courses that Davidson offered in the 2016-17 academic year. And then I went through all the course syllabi to look at the course descriptions and the learning outcomes. And so the reason I have that image up there about the 3 pillars of sustainability is because this experience really gave me a great opportunity to see just how interdisciplinary sustainability really is. For example, one of the classes that I found was actually a sustainability course was English 281, which was contemporary Southern literature. And in the course description that I found in the syllabus, it just said that it studied the region's environmental history. So something like that where you wouldn't expect it just from the title, but within it there's sustainability incorporated into it. And another component of STARS, which nicely complemented my other project, is engagement. So for my employee engagement workshop, I created 4 different topics: energy, transportation, waste, and food. And for each of those topics, I kind of looked at different Davidson policies, so that gave me a great opportunity to understand what Davidson is doing to work towards becoming more sustainable, as well as trying to come up with ideas of things that the faculty and staff can do in their daily lives, and then even right there in that moment, like changing their computer to energy saving mode. So this was a really great way for me to do some research, learn more about sustainability, but also get really excited about sustainability in ways that I can incorporate it into my daily life and continue to do that in whatever career I pursue and, again, just my daily life. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Liam Stifel, and I was partnered with the City of Charlotte Sustainability Office. Unfortunately, I did not get the clicker tutorial, so let me see, I think it's this button. Okay, there we go. So yeah, one of the really cool or unique things about working in the Sustainability Office with the city government is that you really get a good idea of what's going on across the city in sustainability. So many of the partner organizations here today came up at one time or another, which was really neat for me to see. But because of the broad nature of the office, I got to work on quite a variety of projects, everything from Way to Go Charlotte, which was an online competition to promote clean ridership, whether that be public transit, walking, biking, that kind of thing. Everything from that to updating the city on the Riverbend coal ash site, which many of you probably know about, but it's the Duke Energy's large coal ash waste site that's only 3 miles upstream from Charlotte's water source, and they've been cleaning that up for several years, but that cleanup is a big priority for the city. So if you notice that picture there was taken from the air, I actually got to go up in a helicopter to survey the site and photograph it for the update, and that was one of the really cool things I got to do as part of this internship. However, the main project I would like to talk to you about today is the IEOP, the Internal Environmental Operations Plan. So basically what this is a set of goals created by the city about 3 years ago based on what had been done in Philadelphia. And the purpose of this was to make city government operations more sustainable. And now that 3 years have elapsed, the city is about to create a new set of goals to refocus what we're doing as a city in sustainability. So my job was to check in on these goals that are grouped into different focus areas such as energy, fleet, water management, that kind of thing, and basically contact people across city departments to say, so, you know, hey, where are we with this? And collect that information and compile it so that going forward as we create these new goals, we can refocus a bit. And one of the big takeaways for me, and this goes back to Yancey's introduction, I think, is that sustainability needs to be part of everybody's job. You have people like my supervisor, Rob Focus, doing awesome work, to promote sustainability, as many of you are within your organizations. But if you create like a big list of goals like this was, 50-something goals, all kinds of departments, you're going to need people involved who sustainability may not be in their job description. But in order to get something like this done, there's going to need to be a shift in the way people do their work. And I think that I don't necessarily have a solution for this, but I think that going forward, and certainly programs like this are going to help make that critical mindset shift in the next few years, I think. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Beth McLawhorn, and I'm a rising junior environmental studies major. This summer, I've spent time with the Mecklenburg Sustainability Program within Louisa, which is the Land Use and Environmental Services Agency for the county. And through working with Louisa, I've been able to learn a lot about measuring sustainability and local challenges, opportunities, and triumphs of the county. So one of the biggest things that I did was practice engagement, both internally and externally. So internally, through the sustainability program, I was able to travel around the Louisa department and go from air quality to GIS to stormwater services to really learn about the different things that each department did that contributed to environmental use and land use in the county. And living next door to Livable Mech, I was able to engage with a lot of external partners, such as the Carolina Raptor Center and Digital Inclusion, doing facilitation with community members and video production. My specific final project report was to conduct a feasibility study on STAR Communities, which is a certification for cities, towns, and communities, much like the LEED building certification, but for communities. And it exists with 126 credits that range from climate and energy to natural resource credits, economy and jobs, and the built environment, like how our city is built. And it's organized, as you can see, like a menu style, so communities can really play up their strengths with programs and actions that they take. So through this, I was able to gather data from around the county and then take that data and turn it into a technical government report. And I think the greatest thing that I learned while at the county was that all of these complex actions make up sustainability, and that I was able to see how Mecklenburg County is working on them, and there are challenges, but there are really great triumphs within our community as well. Thank you.
Hello all, and to my mom, which is probably watching on Facebook. My name is Maria Bravo, and I'm a rising senior majoring in both political science and Latin American studies. This summer, I had the opportunity to work with Livable Mech, which is a community engagement initiative that started back in 2012 and is also part of Mecklenburg County's Land Use and Environmental Services Agency. Now, what Livable Mech does is that it's trying to really move the needle in these big community ideas, such as improving the quality of life for residents of Mecklenburg County. In my slide, you can see the Livable Mech plan, which consists of 7 guiding principles and 21 strategies, and how to guide our different partners, many of whom are here today, both from the public, private, and nonprofit sector, to drive forward this positive change in relation with the quality of life. Now, I had a variety of responsibilities over the summer, which included reaching out to some of our partners, creating some of the logistics for future events, but also doing some research that would help guide our leadership in their decisions for the upcoming programming. Now, my final project was a livability index or a benchmarking proposal where I really narrowed down or tried to find ways to evaluate and measure the quality of life, both in relation to livable MEC programming, but also to see how we could connect the different indicators that are already available to our different strategies. In my slide, you're seeing a snapshot of the Quality of Life Explorer, which was a tool that if you're not familiar with, I highly recommend you go look it up. It has over 80 indicators at the neighborhood level that range from street transit ridership to sidewalk availability. So there's plenty of things you can see there. Now, I brought up education level per bachelor's degree because it is a great tool that helps us visualize really what is going on in Charlotte. We normally talk about the idea of two Charlottes, how there's a crescent and there's a wedge and there's this big divide in between. So being able to work on these livability index really showed me that organizations such as Livable MEC and many of you who are here are really trying to bridge the divide and improve the quality of life for all. Now, a thought I came across when I was doing my research was, why don't we think about sustainability as livability more often? When we are thinking about quality of life, we are approaching sustainability from the broader view of the three-legged stool we talk about. Many of you are familiar with it, but for those that aren't, sustainability is normally talked in terms of economic sustainability, environmental, and social sustainability. So working at Livable MEC really gave me this understanding that sustainability is in itself improving quality of life for all. How powerful could it be if we could adopt this language and maybe change some of the negative connotations surrounding sustainability? Thank you all for being here today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Ameren. I'm a political science major and a rising junior. This summer I worked with Trees Charlotte. This organization was established around 6 years ago to fulfill the City of Charlotte's mission to establish a tree canopy coverage of 50% by the year 2050. As Charlotte's tree canopy ages, it's a very undiverse canopy that was planted in the late 1800s. These trees have been aging out at around the same time. Oh, crap, excuse me. All right, as you see here, this is the removal rate of trees over the past few years, which has been increasing as this canopy grows older and older. So to match this decrease in trees along with the decrease from trees from development, Trees Charlotte was established. There are many benefits to trees as well, which is why we're doing this. They take CO2 out of the air and can provide carbon offsets because of that, such as the ones that Davidson bought from Trees Charlotte. Excuse me. And they also provide shade for houses to reduce energy consumption. All right, so over the summer I've been collecting and analyzing data using ArcGIS like many other people and Quality of Life Explorer. This is a snapshot of the collector app for ArcGIS for trees that we've planted. And we've been collecting data on those to see how their survivability rates. And I also use the collector app to compare the canopy percentage to average income. This data was used for not only to help plan future events, but also to find potential sponsors for Trees Charlotte for these events. So along with these planning events, right here, these were done at schools and parks. There's also neighborhoods events that we helped with for neighborhoods, for personal, because there's only so many places you can park or plant trees at parks. There we go. All right, so what I learned this summer. Over this summer, I learned about managing nonprofits and leadership from Mr. Cole here. I also learned a lot about event planning and project management, working alongside HICA, or events coordinator, excuse me. And the main thing I learned was the importance of education in environmental things. Because as many trees as we plant, it's more important that we educate people on how to take care of them afterwards and the importance of them, so we'll keep on paying attention to them. All right.
Well, I'm a very proud mama right now of my Davidson students. And I'm sure that, I mean, obviously these presentations went very quickly and the students have done some very deep and broad work in a short period of time. So we reserved a few minutes and would love to have questions from you all that came up. Also, if you're on Facebook and you have any questions, feel free to type them into the comment line and we can take those as well. Questions for the whole room or specific students?
Can any of the students talk about how this has changed or altered your post-Davidson or next internship thought?
Okay, so there was a question, and I'll repeat the questions so everyone can hear. So there was a question about, whether or how this experience might have changed the career path or the way students are thinking about their career paths after this experience. And if any student wants to take a stab at that, I may ask you to actually come up to the mic too, so that everyone can hear the response. I know. Thanks.
So Liam and Yancey talked about this a little bit in their presentations, but I think learning more and more about the field and experiencing different nonprofits, for-profits, government work makes me really want to go into deeper education and not specifically into sustainability, because taking that knowledge to another field and not directly from like a sustainable position, but having it from or going to somewhere when your title is a lawyer or is a banking initiative or whatever that may be, the impact that you can make just by showing by example, I think, is a lot bigger than anything else that you can do.
We have a question from Dr. Fuji Lozada, who's known for hard questions, so brace yourself.
No, this is a question I ask every year, and so some of you guys heard this already. But I'm getting a sense, because every year I ask the sponsors, how can we better prepare our students for the experience that you give them? And you guys usually say, you're doing all right, you're reading, writing, research, and things like that. I did notice, so today there seems to be a lot of people using ARC and particular tools. And I've already talked to some people, Terry and others, about how we can prepare them. But I'm curious from our other sponsors, what else